Hey, it's Saturday, September 13th, 2025. Hope you're doing something nice with your weekend. I've got 4 immigration stories that caught my eye, and I wanted to share them like I would with friends over coffee. Nothing heavy, just useful stuff about what's changing and why people care. First one coming out of California, lawmakers there just pushed forward 2 bills that are all about ending secret police tactics. SB 805 would require federal, state, and local officers working in California, so that includes ICE, Border Patrol, DHS agents, to clearly show a name or badge number when they're working. There are undercover exceptions, but the general idea is that people should know who's detaining them. SB 627 goes after hidden identities too. If the governor signs these, violations could carry up to 6 months in jail and about $1,000 in fines. What I liked about this is how straightforward it sounds. Transparency and accountability. For people in immigrant communities who've been worried about not knowing who's at their door or who pulled them over, this is a pretty direct response. Now, stick with me because the next story flips to a very different part of the country. Alabama just passed a set of strict immigration laws as of today that push police toward acting on immigration matters during routine traffic stops. This is part of a bigger trend. This year, 37 states have passed immigration-related laws, and there have been 104 new measures so far, way more than last year. Back in May, Alabama even created a crime for bringing undocumented immigrants into the state, which is a big, broad stroke that ups the stakes for people who help relatives or friends. The thing I keep thinking about is how ordinary traffic stops could now turn into immigration enforcement encounters. That affects a lot of everyday drivers, especially in places with big immigrant communities, who may already be nervous around traffic stops. What ties those first 2 stories together for me is a tug-of-war between visibility and enforcement. In California, lawmakers are saying, let's make enforcement actors more visible so people know who's acting and why. In Alabama and other states, the law is pushing for more enforcement in everyday interactions. You can see how those approaches pull communities in opposite directions. One tries to add transparency, the other expands where enforcement can show up. The third story is one that quietly affects people's health. Uninsured immigrant patients are facing a rising risk of deportation after seeking medical care. There was a policy update on July 14, 2025, that widened which benefits are considered restricted, and that has people frightened to use public services. Doctors, offices, and clinics aren't supposed to be immigration checkpoints, but with tighter enforcement and these policy changes, many are avoiding care because they're scared it could lead to immigration trouble. That's not just abstract. Skipping care can make chronic conditions worse, lead to more emergency room visits, and cause mental health stress. It changes how communities use schools and clinics too, because if families are scared, they withdraw, and that hits public health and public schooling in real ways. And that actually connects to the fourth story. Lots of cities and counties are responding by expanding sanctuary policies in 2025. Local leaders are tightening rules about how much they share with ICE, limiting federal access to jails and detention facilities, and generally trying to keep immigration enforcement separate from local public services. They say this protects immigrant communities and makes people more willing to cooperate with police and use city services, which, again, helps schools and clinics work better. You're seeing a lot of places say they won't hand over people for deportation unless there's a clear legal requirement. So while some states are ramping up enforcement, many local governments are saying, we're going to protect our neighborhoods and public services. So you get this big picture tension, state-level laws that push enforcement into everyday life, federal enforcement that's still active in many places, and local officials who are trying to shield communities and make public services usable. Meanwhile, health policy changes make some people avoid care, and bills like California's try to make enforcement more transparent. All of that affects real people, drivers, patients, students, teachers, clinic workers, not just headlines. If you're wondering what to watch for next, see if the California bills get signed, and watch how local police departments in states like Alabama respond in practice to the new rules about traffic stops. Also keep an eye on clinics and hospitals. If more patients are skipping care, that'll show up in public health stats. And check whether more cities adopt sanctuary-style rules or tighten up existing ones. That will shape how communities and systems interact. Alright, that's the roundup for this Saturday. If you want to read more, I found these stories on visaverge.com. They had good reporting pulling this all together. Thanks for listening, take care out there, and I'll catch you next time with whatever else pops up.